Hi everybody. I haven't done a live video in a minute because I've been trying to get better at some of the I'm new to YouTube, so I've been trying to get better at finding um, ways to get my video editing skills up and like just reading and like learning about how to share content on this medium. So it's been quite a nice journey actually. Been learning quite a bit, but I wanted to hop on today and share some thoughts now that the Euro 2020 has come to a conclusion. Um, Tournament concluded yesterday, and I didn't want to hop on and share my reactions immediately because I was actually had a lot of feelings about a variety of things that happened in the tournament. But um, for those of you who've watched, and thank you for the support, you will know that I predicted Italy to win the tournament, and I'm sort of happy it did, but not happy of how it played out. Um, because some people on the other side that I liked throughout the Italian journey to the final and then eventually winning. Some people that I like on the other side were hurt, and it was kind of hard to see, especially at the conclusion yesterday, seeing young Bukayo Saka feel some of the stuff that he was clearly feeling after missing that penalty. So, just gonna talk a little bit about some of the things that I observed, and why I guess maybe I called for Italy to win this game and to win the tournament before I knew who the opponents were going to be in the final. I actually thought the Dutch were going to be the opponents to reach there. So clearly, this tournament gave me a little bit of egg on my face, as well as being right about who the ultimate winner was going to be. The other side of the bracket was a little bit harder to call, and I don't know what would have happened in that game if it wasn't for De Ligt getting sent off with about 40 minutes to go. But that's not why I'm here today. I'm not here to relitigate, that red card, which was rightfully given, and the Dutch lost the game as a result of it. I imagine some people may think, differently, like about whether the card should have been given or not. But anyway, I don't want to go too long on that. But what I want to talk about today is actually the actual game from yesterday and some of the things that happened that I think I'm going to focus on being mostly positive and like what each team did well and what where they could have gotten better. But I'm going to be mostly positive in my voice here. Um, Even in my criticism, I'm going to try and be constructive. So the coaches, I think the coaching battle was definitely won by Italy. I think Gareth Southgate is definitely an inferior coach, in my opinion, anyway, to Roberto Mancini. Mancini has, he's done a few rodeos, and even though the talent level was maybe England had the talent edge, but Italy had a good advantage on the coaching side. They had coaches on the sideline who had leading jobs. Even Gianluca Vialli, who was not actually on the backroom staff as a coach. He had a few had coaching jobs himself. I think he might have even coached Chelsea actually after he played for them. I don't know if he was a player coach in the late '90s, but I know he went there after his time in Italy, and then in his twilight of his career, ended up in a coaching role, definitely in a few different spots along the way. So Italy had a coaching advantage, I would say, even though England has some good coaches too, like guys that are unknown who've worked at youth level. Um, the guy from Chelsea, I think Holland is his name, and I know the guy who was helping Ryan, this kid who coached Spurs at the end, Chris Powell. Chris Powell, he's the guy on Ted Lasso, I think. Anyway, Italy also had a coaching advantage on the field. Chiellini, Bonucci, the three guys in midfield, all experienced, but Jorginho and Verratti especially, coaching advantage. So, the team with a lot more a bigger brain trust, I think, anyway, won. Um, and tactically, I thought England didn't lean into their strength. I didn't think England were going to. I think the mistake. I mean, I don't think they should not have done tactics, but I do think it was a mistake for them to not lean into their strength. I think Austria and then I think Spain too, to a degree, had much more success playing against Italy on the front foot. And I thought, even in my preview of the final, that England were going to leave Italy with leave Italy for dead, really, if it became a physical contest. And I think scoring early probably became a problem for England because that meant they had something to protect, and they probably going into the game they trusted their defense because their defense had been reliable throughout the tournament. I didn't like going in with the back three for England, but I think that you could take it. You can take two ways of looking at that, or more even. But I'm going to choose two. You could say England leaned into their strength, right? They'd only considered one goal, and it was a screamer in the semifinal, leading up to the final. They'd only conceded one goal, so they've been a stingy defense. Italy the same. However, you could also argue that it was negative tactics because it left England, even though they won against Germany, that's the only other time I remember them playing a back three in this tournament, and I didn't like it because it made them seem a little bit more rigid, and it gave even that poor Germany side, it gave them an upper hand. In Germany, if you go back and look at that game statistically, for large periods of that game, Germany had too much of the ball, and England couldn't do a lot of good stuff with the ball when they had it. And so that's a problem. That's a problem. And I think going forward, he may, hopefully he learns from this. I don't think, people should go in too hard on him because, it allowed them to stay in the game for long periods and they were leading for long periods. However, I think it gave the initiative to Italy. And if you give those guys time on the ball, and I said this in my preview podcast and in other other tweets and things where I was talking about games throughout this tournament, that if you give Italy time on the ball, they are just too smart. They're very, very clever, and they can manipulate the game to their advantage. But if you play in their face, they could not have lived with the pace. I mean, England had athletes all the way throughout, even on the bench. And maybe that was the way England could have won this game, but it's easy to Monday morning quarterback. So I'm not going to go too heavy and be too critical on that. But those are the two ways you can look at this. You can say England were too defensive, and they should have been more brave. And you could say they could have gone with the back four because they looked a lot more fluid with the back four, and they keep the ball better with the back four. So those are the two things that I think were the bone of contention. But I think the right team and the best team in the tournament won. However, we're talking about just one game, and it's like, what do you need to do to win the tournament in this one game? I think those are the two areas where maybe England didn't lean into their other, because one of their other advantages was them having fast, athletic kids who can sustain playing at a high tempo for longer. If this was going to become a game of tactics or a game of like brain power, I think Italy was always going to have an edge there. England's edge was youth and athleticism, and I don't think they leaned into that much more beyond the first 20, 25 minutes. I think the first 20, 25 minutes, England were on the front foot, and maybe, just maybe, a lack of rotation maybe hurt them in that they had played 120 minutes in the semifinal, and they were the aggressors in that game, whereas Italy in the semifinal were playing, a little bit deep and won on pens too, but it was a day before. So they had, roughly 24 hours more rest. I really don't think that's the reason Italy won this game. But I'm just trying to give England maybe some kind of a reason why they were not as aggressive for long enough in this game. But I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about that. But yeah, I think Italy um, should have been pushed a little harder by England, because I just think that England had strengths that Italy would have had a harder time dealing with. But credit to Mancini and his team, because I think England are only at the beginning of what promises to be an incredible journey. So it's going to be interesting to see, what comes of this when it's all said and done. Maybe in 2026 in the US, or in Euro 2028, because I think a lot of these kids, especially like including those who missed kicks yesterday, they'll probably be playing for England still. If obviously injuries and things like that can happen, but if that sort of thing doesn't happen, these kids will probably be playing for England, and they'll probably win more games than not. And I wouldn't bet against them winning a major tournament even as well. So like, this was a tournament that it had a lot of good stuff, and I'm gonna do podcasts and other things where I'll be talking about this. But I just wanted to do a quick live video just to share some of my thoughts after sleeping on stuff and seeing a lot of things around racial abuse of young kids, which is totally pathetic. But it's to be expected. People do these kinds of things, behind a keyboard somewhere, and still send monkey emojis and things like that. And I don't want to go too long on that here, because every little thing that I spoke on in this video, I'll be doing much more detailed content on it through my podcast, and on this channel I'll also be putting up a few things. But I just wanted to share a few thoughts on where I am in my head about what my observations were as I watched the game. And so I'm going to stop here, but I just also want to say thank you guys for those of you who've supported my growth in this little journey. I know it's only about like 19 or so of you, but I'm working my tail off to try and get better at a lot of these different things, because I see this as a long road for me in terms of exploring this way of sharing information and talking about things that I love, and connecting to like-minded folks around things that we are passionate about, especially when it comes to sports. And maybe even I'm feeling more and more confident, I might explore a variety of topics as well. But I just wanted to say that. So thank you for your support. Cheers for now. Laters.